Sometimes the worst people seem like they're winning, walking away from betrayal, lies, and manipulation without consequences. But life doesn't deliver justice in front of an audience. It works quietly in the background, where no one else is looking. Stoics don't chase revenge or demand apologies. They observe, knowing karma is always operating behind the scenes. While you're healing in peace, they're carrying the weight of their choices, even if they pretend otherwise. You may see them posting constant photos, smiling with new people, acting like they've never been happier. But look closely. Their happiness seems loud, forced, like a performance for others, not peace within themselves. The person who ghosted you or betrayed your trust might appear to be thriving, but desperation hides in the exaggerated glow-up, the sudden rush of quotes, selfies, and distractions. Real healing doesn't need to prove anything. Fake healing does. They're not unaffected, they're just good at pretending. The eyes reveal more than any caption can. Stoicism teaches us to detach from outcomes and focus on our reactions. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to us, but how we respond that defines us. And as Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the best revenge is simply to be unlike those who harmed us. That's why a Stoic doesn't seek closure from someone who shattered their peace. They don't argue or explain. They step back, not in weakness, but in strength, because truth, karma, and silence are already at work. The people who hurt you often seem like they're doing fine, even thriving, but appearances lie. The more loudly someone tries to prove they've moved on, the more likely it is they haven't. Karma doesn't arrive with thunder. It comes in silence, slipping into their lives in the quiet hours when the noise fades and the truth echoes. It's that moment before sleep when they realize they lost someone who genuinely cared, someone who never wanted to see them hurt. No selfie, no highlight reel, no new partner can drown out a conscience whispering, "You destroyed something real." Let them smile for the camera. You already know the truth. The act of faking peace is exhausting, and karma knows it. It doesn't punish with explosions. It subtracts slowly. First, it's small, a friend who pulls away, trust that quietly vanishes, chances that fade without warning. They chalk it up to bad luck until the pattern becomes undeniable, and they're left standing in the ruins of everything they once dismissed. They used to call you too emotional, too needy, when in truth, you were the one who cared, who stayed up comforting them, who forgave them even when they didn't deserve it. They treated your love like a guarantee, not the gift it was. So eventually you stopped offering. You walked away, not with anger, but with peace. And while they may have felt free at first, the silence grew heavy. The people they trusted reflected their own coldness, and the warmth they once received from you became irreplaceable. No new connection could fill the space you once held. Karma doesn't just remove comfort, it reveals what they gave up and makes them live with that absence. As Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. When someone mistreats someone good, they aren't just betraying another. They're betraying the better version of themselves that had access to peace, forgiveness, and depth. Karma doesn't punish them with loud suffering. It shows them what they threw away and ensures every new joy feels thinner, every room colder, every win emptier, because deep down, they know exactly what they lost. Let them keep searching. Let them sit in rooms that no longer feel sacred, surrounded by things that don't compare to what they once had with you. Because karma doesn't just remove people or possessions. It takes away the version of themselves they were when they still had your love. And no matter how hard they try to rebuild it, that specific version of peace, of safety, is gone. When someone keeps talking in circles, yet every sentence somehow centers on you, whether they admit it or not, karma is already speaking through their restlessness. They'll never mention your name outright, but it lingers in every vague quote, every cryptic post about betrayal or fake people, every subtle caption about energy and healing. To outsiders, it might seem like nothing, but you recognize it. You understand the tone, the timing, the guilt beneath the surface, because you once knew them deeply enough to hear their silence. And now those silences haunt them. That's karma, not in the form of disaster, but in the form of obsession. Their thoughts become echo chambers of what they lost, Memories they thought they'd forget but can't escape. You've seen it, a story that reads like a poem with a blade, not addressed to anyone, yet every line shouts your name in disguise. That's not growth. That's ego gasping for air through cracks they can't patch. You stay silent, not because you don't have something to say, but because Stoicism teaches you that peace doesn't argue. A Stoic doesn't reply, doesn't clap back, doesn't quote them in return. True power lies in stillness. Epictetus said if someone speaks ill of you, live so that no one believes it. So when they spin twisted stories or drop half-truths to those still listening, you don't explain, you outgrow. Let them carry your presence like a ghost in their thoughts, because the more they try to talk around it, the more obvious it becomes you left, but they never did. Let them talk. Let them perform. Let them pretend they've healed loudly enough to drown out the reality that they haven't healed at all. The fifth and most undeniable sign that someone is silently receiving their karma is when they finally meet someone just like them. At first it feels familiar. They laugh at the same things, share the same detachment, move through life with the same guarded distance. It feels easy, almost too easy, because nothing requires depth. But what they don't realize is they've stepped into a mirror, not a partner. This person doesn't ask questions about their day. They don't notice when they're off. They cancel plans. They speak in vague apologies. They disappear and reappear when it's convenient. And suddenly, all the things they once justified doing to you now land at their doorstep. Not in anger, not in revenge, just in repetition. The same indifference, the same emotional coldness, the same silence. It all comes back, not as punishment, but as proof. Proof that what they once called too sensitive was just love. What they mocked as clingy was actually care. What they rolled their eyes at, your effort, your patience, your presence, was everything they now crave from someone who simply won't give it. And no matter how hard they try to connect, they're met with a wall. Because karma knows the only way to understand the pain you caused is to feel it through someone who makes you beg for what you once received freely. They'll overthink texts that never come. They'll wait for calls that never arrive. They'll rehearse words in their head and never get a chance to speak them. It will hurt, quietly, relentlessly. But the worst part isn't the rejection. It's the realization that the version of love they used to mock was the version they needed most. And now it's gone, because you're gone. And here's where karma finishes its quiet masterpiece. They can't even blame anyone. There's no villain, no dramatic ending, just them and their choices and their reflection. They sit alone scrolling through old memories, wondering how someone like you ever loved them the way you did. They try to find you in other people, only to be met with shallow connections that don't last. They lie awake, not haunted by your anger, but by your absence. Because your silence is louder than anything they've ever heard. And it says everything. I was real. You were careless. And now I'm gone. You don't need to forgive them to heal. You don't need closure to move on. Because closure doesn't always come in a conversation. It comes in growth. It comes when you realize that walking away wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. Karma doesn't strike to punish. It strikes to teach. And the lesson is this: when you mistreat someone good, you don't just lose them. You lose the version of you that existed when they still believed in you. And that version, that's the one they'll miss the most. Not because you were perfect, but because you were present. You showed up. You tried. And now they finally understand loyalty is rare. Empathy is sacred. And when you break something real, life doesn't give you replicas. It gives you reminders. Until you finally see the truth. Until you finally feel what you made others feel. That's not just karma. That's justice in silence. And it always arrives right on time. Let them feel the confusion, the instability, the constant second-guessing, the same chaos they once left behind in someone else's heart. Let them live in that same limbo, where love feels like a puzzle missing its centerpiece, where reassurance never comes and clarity is always just out of reach. Because now, they are the one wondering, what changed? What did I do wrong? Questions they once ignored when you asked them. This mirror won't shatter quickly. No, karma is patient. It lets the cracks form slowly, first in their confidence, then in their pride, and finally in their belief that they could ever stay emotionally detached from consequences. Every unanswered message is a reminder. Every cold shoulder is a reflection. Every night spent staring at a phone that doesn't light up is a taste of the emptiness they once delivered. They used to say they didn't want anything too serious. Now they desperately crave the depth they once mocked. They search for stability in someone as inconsistent as they used to be. They want honesty from someone who only tells half-truths. They crave softness from someone who weaponizes silence. And all of it, every cold moment, every distant glance, every emotional breadcrumb, starts to break them in ways they never expected. This isn't cruelty. This is consequence, not inflicted from the outside, but unfolding from within. Because the heart knows. It remembers what it once broke. And when life finally hands them their own medicine, it tastes nothing like power. It tastes like regret. And here's the truth: they can't run from the most painful kind of karma isn't being left. It's realizing that you were the one and they were the problem. Let them sit in that realization. Let them ache for a second chance that will never come. Let them scroll through old photos, rereading the messages you once sent, wondering how they ever let someone like you go. Let them whisper to themselves in the dark, "I didn't know what I had," because now they do, and it's too late. Karma doesn't need to destroy someone's life. It just needs to wake them up. And sometimes the most powerful awakening is the moment they finally see themselves. Through someone else's rejection, someone else's silence, someone else's apathy. Let them live in that mirror. Let them learn, not for your closure, but for their growth. Not because you wanted revenge, but because life wanted balance. And balance always finds its way back. That's not revenge. That's evolution. And the world watches in silence because growth like that makes noise without a sound. Every step forward you take in silence echoes louder than any argument ever could. Your absence speaks volumes in rooms where your name still lingers, where your memory still challenges the stories they tell to feel better about what they did. But you're not there to defend yourself anymore. And that silence, that's power. You're no longer playing in the same arena. They're still tangled in the same loops, repeating the same patterns, searching for new people to fill the void they created. But nothing satisfies, not for long, because the truth always catches up. When the noise dies down, when the distractions fade, when the lights go out and it's just them and their thoughts. That's when karma whispers the loudest. And while they're stuck there, battling the reflection they tried to escape, you're building a life rooted in truth. One that doesn't depend on apologies that never came or closure that never arrived. You found peace, not because they made things right, but because you did. You chose not to stay bitter. You chose not to shrink. You chose to evolve. That's not weakness. That's mastery. That's stoicism in motion. Let them sit in the comfort of lies if they must. You sit in clarity. You walk in truth. You rest easy at night knowing you did right by your heart, even when it hurt. That is the quiet reward the universe gives those who don't seek revenge, who don't retaliate, who simply rise. And maybe they'll never say it. Maybe the words "I was wrong" will never leave their lips. But make no mistake, they feel it. In the silence, in the sleepless nights, in the empty victories and fake smiles. That's where karma does her finest work, not in chaos, but in stillness. So don't chase them. Don't explain yourself. Don't look back. Let your peace be proof. Let your progress be poetry. Let your silence be sacred. You don't need them to see your worth. You became your worth. And the most poetic justice of all, they'll spend a lifetime searching for someone like you, never realizing they lost someone irreplaceable. Let them wonder. Let them ache. Let them scroll through what-ifs in the dark. You, you were never just a lesson. You were the awakening. And that is something karma never lets them forget.